Which roll call?
Yeah.
Dale Hughes.
Yes.
Susan Alshire.
Yes. There you go.
Brian Bennett. Don Bagley.
Yeah.
Lynn Murray.
Here.
Sarah Wilkins.
Present.
Phil Hoffman.
Here. Mayor. He's a member.
Chris House.
Over your head.
Thank you. Okay, I will fix that for next time.
No problem.
All right, stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item up is the review and approval of prior meeting minutes. We need, anybody have any comments or anything on the meeting minutes from August 3rd? We have a motion for,
So
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, this brings us to the hot topic on the agenda, the preliminary plat for the North Point subdivision. So this, right now is, not a, public hearing, so this is actually just a commission at this moment, so. There were questions that were sent to Mr. Adams, we have the response packet here, right? So with that, do we have anybody who would like to start us off with anything regarding the answers or the plat as it is proposed at this point in time?
We talked about preliminarily, me and Mike in the office and so forth, I think we talked about it quite a bit. I think it's where we expected it to get to at this point. Probably the discussion needs to be around the road and who owns what of doing the road. I think that's the only point of contention that could possibly be at this point, unless I'm wrong, if somebody sees something differently. More than welcome to jump in, I'm not trying to say it, but we looked at it and he came back, Mr. Adams and his group came back with those things that we talked about from last time, I think pretty well covered and explained and understood. So that's kind of my thoughts on what I've seen. Any other feedback would be great as well. I will make the comment for public record, just so it's on record, that I know Darren's asked, Mr. Adams has asked a couple times about us going to a third-party engineering group. They're the first one to develop since I've been the mayor. We kind of went down a real development of these since I've been here. And it made sense to me that we should start to, it's money well invested to have a third party look at that for elevations, runoff, all of those things. That's something that's going to be a part of our standard operating procedure from this point on. So understand it was your development this time, right, that got that for the first time, that treatment. But that will be a standard for us moving forward always, because we are not trained engineers and all this. Mike has a lot of experience in all the different utilities and things like that, but that does not mean we're in a position to, and that is to protect both parties as partners in development. So that came from us talking, and it made sense for us to do that. So I kind of want to put that on the record, just the fact that it has been the first time, Darren, yes, absolutely, but there's a real reason behind it. It had nothing to do with your development, it just had to do with development in general, moving forward, and how do we make sure that we're looking at everything, and that's to protect both parties' interests as we become partners and develop in Centralia and working on a comprehensive plan, that kind of thing. So that's why I want to say that for sure. Other than that, I'm done. I'm not well. So.
So with that, you brought up you're talking about where Hickman goes north? Is that the road you're talking about? Fairgrounds.
I think it talks more about what's gonna happen when the sewer line's laid and how it's gonna be put back. I think that's the biggest concern we have as far as rehab and specifications.
You want me to come up to the microphone, or?
Sure,
All right.
absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
evening. My name is Jay Gephardt. I'm a civil engineer with Civil Group. And I'm here with Robert Hollis, attorney with Van Matry and Associates, and Darren. And this section of Hickman up to our property line from Fairgrounds up, we are going to have to build a water line and a sewer line. And we probably, and Mike is right, we're probably going to do a lot of damage to that road when we do that. And so, what I would like to do is be able to do a set of plans, get approval of those, instead of maybe not replacing all the pavement, but maybe we do. It's just a matter of how much we end up tearing out on that. But Darren knows that we got to bring the sewer up that right away, and the road is there, so we're going to tear up part of that road. The real trick for me is to try to figure out how to do that and keep it out open to the 2 or 3 homes north there, so that they always have access, and there's always emergency access available to those people. But it's about a 20-foot wide pavement, and we're going to probably end up with a 3 or 4 foot wide ditch for the sewer. So it's quite a bit of the pavement's going to be torn out for that, and we can patch it back by going back into the pavement and putting in a concrete patch and then overlay that with asphalt so that it looks like a brand new street. Or we can do whatever the city would like to see done for that. It's your road. We have to get a permit to work in it, so we're subject to.
With the depth of that sewer, you're probably gonna be wider than 3 foot. If it's 10 foot, and I don't know if plan on using a cage, I definitely would.
Yeah.
And even pulling that through there, you're gonna have to shore it.
Yeah.
Time you shore it, you're gonna have most of that road ate up.
Yep, and then we got to backfill it, and we got to put backfill somewhere, and yeah, by the time we get it all pushed back in and the rock back in it, it'll be torn up. So, what would you like to see us do as far as, you want us to put a 38-foot curb and gutter street back in, or are we talking about putting back what's there as far as the width?
Well, we'd like to see it brought up code as part of a new subdivision going all the way up through. I think that's what it needs to be.
Okay.
And I'm assuming the city would partner on that?
We don't, or anybody else's on new subdivisions. We never have on them you've done before and stuff.
I think our partnership would be bringing it up to code from Highway 22 up to Fairgrounds, to match what you're gonna put in from Fairgrounds north.
And that will be done?
It will be done, yes.
It'll be done at the same time?
We can't necessarily guarantee that.
And we'd probably be better if we didn't do it at the same time, so we could still keep somewhat of traffic around Fairgrounds. And
The big thing I don't wanna see is how we donated all this money over on Emerald Point to improve Jefferson. It's still not done. We donated per lot out on Cobblestone. Gano's not done. So this whole thing of doing this stuff because the city's gonna come through and redo it doesn't seem to happen.
we're working on Jefferson. Got a grant deal we're working on, try to get that completed.
That was done in 2003.
Well, our streets and roads needed to be caught up in the life cycle span, okay? So we've been working on that, so I am proud of what we've got done in the last 3 years. So I understand your point that we should practice what we preach and we should bring these things up to code, right, and what we're wanting. The bottom line is, I think that for me and us, as we move forward, we can't guarantee we're gonna get something done by a certain date based upon monies that we have to get appropriated to do capital projects, which this is a capital project we want to do, be a partner in and move forward with. So the goal would be absolutely to make it match what you're gonna put in. I don't know if that gets done this coming summer or when.
I have a suggestion possibly that might solve some of this. So your standard is a 38-foot street and a 60-foot right-of-way for a collector. And you guys don't distinguish between neighborhood collectors and major collectors and minor collectors and things like that. if we were allowed to, or granted a variance to dedicate 6-foot right of way, leave that alone, but then build a 32-foot curb and gutter street, we save us 6 feet of pavement for the whole length of our development, and then we can continue that 32 down to Fairgrounds. And it's a dead-end street, probably gonna be a dead-end street for a while. So would that be something that possibly we could do? Because then there's a savings to us that we can apply to improving that section down to Fairgrounds. I know we're trying to horse trade here with the microphone, and that's never good,
Right,
but it's just an idea of a possibility.
Well, I think if we want to cooperatively try to look at what the options are and what the end result must, you know, the minimum it has to be, right, as we talk about this stuff.
So we don't do it for anybody else, right?
Not typically.
So if we do it this time, then we're gonna start doing it all the time to everybody else with this subject, correct?
To me, anytime you take a variance, whatever you lower that variance to, you set that standard lower moving forward, because in a court of law, you won't win. Because the precedent's been set. So it's a slippery slope. We give 6 feet here, we give 6 feet forever. I mean, that's kind of the problem when we end up in. So,
Perhaps the solution then is just not designate it as a collector and just designate it as a residential street. And then we can dedicate the extra right of way if you want, because you've already got it laid out that way, but, it's a 50-foot minimum with 32-foot right length.
That would be for the 32, yeah.
And just designate Hickman a residential street from Fairgrounds North. Then there's no variance, and we're not setting precedent.
Lynn, do you have any,
What does the plans, new plan say? Doesn't it designate,
it designates it as a collector street,
and that we should follow that standard?
the comprehensive?
Can I make 2 points?
Yes.
Number one, for Emerald Point, actually for Cobblestone too. For Emerald Point, we traded the obligation to do any improvements along Jefferson in exchange for the east side of Emerald Drive at the other end of the street that was on property that had to be acquired from Paulus Lawson and
Bill Tolson. Mr. Tolson.
okay. So it was something off-site traded in lieu of Jefferson, because Jefferson being under state maintenance, we didn't have full control over that, and it was going to have to be a major design and build with millions of bucks we didn't have. Still don't have. But it would have to follow their standards, it wouldn't be our standards. Cobblestone, they have been putting, probably should have close to enough from the sale of each lot to pay for their side of No Chance. And that's another street. You can't engineer just improvements to the middle of the street and meet elevations and drainage possibilities and that sort of thing. You have to do it in conjunction with what's going to be done on the other side. So it's going to sit there. It's going to sit there, although the city has done paving overlays and improvements that way. The other question on this attachment and down to Fairgrounds is for 2/3 of Durant subdivision, that's going to be the only entrance. From a practical standpoint, not what the city requires or anything else, just from a sales standpoint, which you should be aware of as a realtor. If you've got a cruddy looking street as your only entrance to a subdivision that you're going to be building your houses in, it's not going to be very enticing. It's going to diminish the amount of revenue you can realize from the sale of those lots. And so, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, more or less. Now, you probably don't necessarily need sidewalks on both sides, given the development that's there now. And that retaining wall along that storage area later on for the city is not gonna go anywhere. At some point, the city will have to consider what's gonna happen to Fairgrounds Road that's never been built going to the east,
We actually have a request to vacate that.
you know. We'll have to address that. Have you discussed with him what kind of improvements are gonna be required for the one cul-de-sac that's gonna be a temporary cul-de-sac?
We haven't yet, but it would be the same, 4 inches of rock, at least 4 inches of rock, and then 4 inches of asphalt on top of that,
Yeah,
and 2 lifts.
that's what we intended.
And that should be enough for that to hold that, everything.
But
Yeah, that's what we're planning on.
Okay, because we have a couple of other things, they're temporary cul-de-sacs, and 20 years later, they're still temporary cul-de-sacs.
well, we'll address it, we'll see, yeah.
Just try and head it off.
Right.
We're actually picking the water up out of the curb and gutter right before it gets to that temporary. So the only water we're dealing with on that would be the water that falls on the cul-de-sac. And it should be able to handle that without turning down an inlet. So we could also tilt it back, we could also tilt the cul-de-sac back here so the water comes back to our inlets. It wouldn't be an issue.
On the temporary turnaround
Yeah,
is where it's,
yeah.
Does anyone have any
Something that's
questions
gonna
about,
turn them up lolly for the fire trucks to turn around on.
does anyone have any questions about the right of way for Hickman that's off our property but north of, Engelbrechtsen, I can't pronounce their last names, but,
This is Tom Riley.
hi.
I didn't know what he was talking about, so.
So according to the documentation that we've been provided and the city attorney's reviewed as well, she's in agreement that right of way exists.
Okay.
That had to be determined with your all's work and what you provided us. It became clear to us that there is a right of way that was established back in the day, it goes back to 1913 or something. But we had to research all that, you know, and find out, and had to get help with research, because it's kind of like our cemetery, there's things that we get, and over the years, the bookkeeping's been as good as possible, but 1913, Lynn wasn't here, and I sure wasn't, so I mean, we're meeting challenges all the time about properties, right? I'm not big on eminent domain at all, unless it's for an infrastructure that we need for a power plant or an extra leg or whatever it may be, you know, and I'd hope to try to come to terms before having to do that. But this situation here is a situation where it's been made pretty clear, I think, through the legal process of looking things up and going back and doing the research that we felt comfortable at this point. Is that correct? With our
Yes.
Sydney and everything, so.
And I just want to say that Darren doesn't have any problem if you guys want to take up on your own a vacation of that Hickman right away north of our dedication to get, just to clean up that and give them some peace of mind that the road won't ever be across the front yard. So that'd be up to you all, but we wouldn't oppose that.
So I don't know if it changes the commission's opinion about the 32-foot street curb and gutter, but from Fairgrounds, on Hickman Street, from Fairgrounds to Highway 22, we have a 50-foot right-of-way. We don't have a 60-foot right-of-way. So we would have to get more right-of-way to even put in the bigger street, the collector street.
I don't think you'll be able to get it right away there.
So
I don't think there's enough room for it.
if that changes your opinion of that at all.
If I would advocate for that 32-foot street, it'd be that section of, especially that section between Fairgrounds up to our property. It's, the east side is the back of existing homes, and there probably not many people that park there. And then on the west side, there's only two. I don't live here, but every time I've gone up there, I've never seen anyone parked on the street. So, 32-foot wide provides two 16-foot travel lanes, if you don't have parking on both sides. So it's, it's another way to do that. It's also less pavement for you guys to maintain.
Let me ask this question. So, is there a precedent being set, or is it being dictated by an existing situation with the road that drives this 32-foot road versus the 38?
I feel I think it would be a lot harder to get that additional right of way based on what's already existing. I don't feel like it's a precedent. I feel like we're making an exception based on the information we have in front of us.
Being dictated by the present existing for development in that point. So, if that's correct, I'll tell you, we have to be partners in growing our town, right? So as far as I'm concerned, we all have to take up the fact that we don't want to set precedents, that we have to, that lowers the standard what we expect. But if that's the case, and we determine that's the case, then I think we should seriously consider meeting that need if we're not going to be able to provide ourselves because of the existing easements. That's a different scenario than us deciding to just go to the smaller street for this instance here. I mean, it's been driven.
For what it's worth, from a lawyer's perspective, I'm Robert Hollis, financial law firm. You're not setting legal precedent. That actually doesn't exist at this level. Now, there might be political precedent or some other sort of precedent that people might want to try to refer to, but there is no binding precedent by you making a decision, even if you weren't basing it on this very relevant fact that you only have 50 feet right away. You would never be legally bound for the next person to do anything.
Yeah, but I think it, from a standpoint of integrity,
Sure.
as a city, I think that we have to be fair and equitable to anybody. Can we do the same thing? I think we did that real well when he was here. I had a couple of deals where I had to get some things. I think that he was always consistent, and I think that that's what we will continue to be, is absolutely consistent. So if we did that here, it's based upon this situation that dictates to us we can't provide the same thing that we're asking you to finish to. If that is the case, then hell, I think it's ludicrous for us to expect something that we can't provide up to you as well, right? So it's a pre-existing condition that sets this for this development of our contingency plan, right? It's in your comprehensive plan. So this is I think this has to be ironed out. This road situation has to be ironed out. Yes.
Yeah, I just think, from where he's making the turn out of his building over here onto Hickman to go on up to Fairground, how wide is that gonna be? I mean, I've heard different things. Just how wide is it gonna be?
Well, that's what we're talking about now.
Is it?
So we may be, it was gonna be 38 foot, but it may be 32.
Okay, all right.
So you allow on-street parking makes a difference.
Right.
That's a question for Sydney. If you approve the final plat of this arrangement, and they're not including the right-of-way, does that automatically vacate that part of Hickman or North Star Road or whatever it was? Because I think Sydney determined that some of the documentation that appears to have been the legal document that transferred right-of-way isn't there.
From the special road district to be?
Yeah. So really, you may need contemporaneous with the final plat, a deed from the city vacating, or an ordinance vacating that half road, and a concurrence with the Pattons and Ingebrigtsen that they want to vacate their half of the road, since it's presumably right along the property line as a center line. I mean, that's a technicality. It shouldn't have been during at all, but you may need those
Be a plus.
to the document, and you may need an ordinance doing the vacation.
I'm sure we'll have to have it on this, do the vacation, right?
Well, I kind of think we need to keep that, going north, past where the entrance is into the subdivision. We don't have to develop it now. It can stay at, after, the little curve through there is, developed. We don't have to develop the rest of the way up north. I think we can hang on to that. And should a future development see it north of the new subdivision, we decide to put another one in. We have the road, we already have everything there we need to build a road further north. So I think we just leave the road as it is, not develop it until such time as needed. It's gonna be difficult to get it back once we vacate it.
Okay. If that's the feeling of the commission, then somewhere along the line, all of those people along the west side of Hickman are going to have some sort of constructive notice that there is a right-of-way that will be remaining there, and they could end up with through lots. They could end up with the street in front and the street in back.
For future, you're talking
For
about.
future, yeah, if you retain it. If you don't think you,
I talked to Lindsay Egerbertson yesterday, and I disagree with Dale.
Yes,
I
Darren?
disagree with that.
So we had Mr. and Miss Pat, or Mrs. Pat, and then Miss Engelbrecht's met in my office, and that was one of the major reasons that we shifted the road like we did, was to get the headlights out of their basically living room and things, and then also we're all on the agreeance of vacating that going forward. We understand that you're all to do with what you want, but we're, at least our last meeting, we were all for it because they don't want a driveway or a road going in their front yard.
And that was confirmed, Heather, I'm taking it with your discussion yesterday.
Yes,
And is that the same thing that you're
Yes.
understanding as well?
yes.
And all of those people are okay with that, the way that stands at this point?
That was one of the major reasons that we
Right.
shifted that lot and killed that part of that lot to get that over.
Well, I was just saying, do that, but, we know we've already got the right of way. There's no need to develop it anytime soon unless plans change in the future to where there is building further on north.
Well, Darren's Road's gonna be going north. It's gonna be dead-ended where it can potentially keep going. So, I mean, we'll
So
still have a
it will
road.
be developed north.
Yeah, we'll still have a road that's there.
Collector
Or the
Street.
for Darren to develop any more property than what he has in his plat, he's gonna need
Yeah, yeah.
access either to 151 or Jefferson.
He's gotta have a secondary outlet.
That means he's
That's
gotta
what
plan after somebody has developed the adjacent properties and/or acquire right-of-way to get over to those streets.
Well, that's
And
what I'm
that
saying.
would provide the back door for the anchor business.
But if I weigh into this a little bit, it's really inefficient layout and design to have a single loaded road, which you only have lots on one side, which is what this road would be if we were to do that. I would think that 50 years from now or whenever that gets redeveloped, they would have a different layout than that, where that road is, because I'm not arguing with your point that you have it, you don't have to give it up. That's true, but it would be helpful if it was, I think.
What's your question?
Yes, go ahead.
If you don't give that up, or we don't vacate it, you're gonna put a road on down through there and take care of it?
What I'm saying is,
You're gonna take care of the one that's there.
no,
Well,
just
then,
leave, it's plotted, it's already there.
but you don't take care of it, so if you
Right,
tell me.
that's what I'm saying.
You're
If we
saying
leave
you
it
said
there.
it was yours.
If the city, it's already plotted to go up through there, where, North Point subdivision goes in, just leave it as it is, the road firm, where the curve is further and going up to the north end of the, north part of the, cow pasture to the north of the subdivision. Leave that as it is now, until it's.
It can't be, there's gotta be, the collector street has to be run up there with a cul-de-sac built in it. That has to happen.
On what, on Hickman
On his-
Street?
on
Yeah,
his property, on his
existing
property.
north.
Yeah, if you go, keep going through their properties, you know, eventually into that big cow pasture that's there.
Right of way.
And not have to regain the, not give up that right of way is what I'm trying to say.
But if everybody's happy at this point, you're happy as you're gonna get, right? It sounds like to
As
me.
happy as we're gonna get, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that there's been communication and there's been, I mean,
Yeah.
we have to develop as a town. I was not in favor of eminent domain. It sounds like we've got to a point with us doing research, we've got to a point. So the last thing that's cumbersome now at this point to me, as long as we're not doing something that sets us up for problems in the future as a city, I think we should continue on with and get this thing put to bed at some point where there's not any more meeting. I appreciate what you're saying, Dale, and I understand your point exactly, but for me, if this gets this done, by us vacating, as you told us, Lynn, as you were talking about that, then, my thought is to move forward making, a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, with foregoing this property right away, and, with the 32 foot, if we establish that that is the fact that we can't get those easements to that width. And so, maybe something's happened that's helped me be really good with where we're at.
Well,
That's the situation.
I would say vacate it, because there's no reason to have two roads heading north 100 feet apart. Darren's gonna have a road dead ended up there that if he develops down the road, that he's gonna take off on.
Understood.
And there's gonna be access there.
I understand, at some point, you're gonna do something to the other side of that, if you're gonna be on both sides, and it's not loaded on one side as you put it, so there'll be changes at that point. But, so I mean, I was more, it sounds like to me, if, we just need to confirm that, but that's my thoughts. I think that we vacate and we move on and we get a subdivision going.
I mean, I'm not hampering the building of the subdivision, that's not my point, my point's just for future, building progress down the road. I'm not gonna say no so the man, I wanna say yes so the man can get the subdivision built. I'm just thinking ahead when we need to put that. Yeah, I understand there's over 100 foot away, there's another, road that deads end. But is it about a mile, half mile or a mile north of there before you hit 151?
We don't know.
You don't hit 151 north. You hit
No,
C,
you hit C.
C Highway, that's 3 or 4 miles, 4.
North Star
Probably
Road.
a good 2.5.
Yeah,
Right, so I mean, if he's gonna go north,
he's got 151 on the east and C on the west.
Property, and it might
See on the west.
go up to 151.
Jefferson
There's
Street
no
runs
fact.
out to
Jefferson
So-
Street runs east,
Understood, I agree.
151, but 151.
151 curves and goes to Sunnydale.
Yeah.
And C turns and goes back north to
Yeah,
Paris.
and then from C across is 151.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, it's about 3 or 4 miles up to 151 for another entrance and exit.
No, 151's over here.
Oh, 151, if you go up there, you can come up here, there's a stop sign you can
This
turn.
is C. This is C way up here.
Yeah, this is
I
it.
think that if it gets developed in the
Here's
future,
this
that the
cross.
plan's gonna be substantially different than what is
I
there
may be
now,
wrong.
and so
You may be
we
wrong,
can just
but-
reevaluate at that point in time.
What, the only thing I've got a question on is the drainage out of the detention pond. Is that going to put a lot of water north? I mean, I don't wanna have the same problem we have here in town about that.
Go to Sweeney's.
Well, and I get whose it is, but I don't want them coming up here throwing a fit because we gave you all permission, you all are throwing all your water onto them.
So I can try to answer that. The city has hired Bartlett and West to do a review of my work and just make sure it's in compliance with the city's code for stormwater. And we fully intend to comply with that, whatever changes we need to. In fact, from the original submittal to this, we've changed it based on their comments. We've changed the shape of it and the size of the drainage easement to address their concerns. We hadn't gone as far as they were asking us to at Portage preliminary plat, but we went a little bit further than we normally would in order to answer those questions. But when we get to the final development plans, and we have the size and we have the flows and everything, we'll be able to show that the pre-development flow is not exceeded in the post-development. So whatever rate of water that runs off in today's world will still be that rate when we're done. The rest of it will be collected in the detention pond and released over time. Now, I just want to make sure I'm not misleading anyone. The key word there is rate, right? It's not volume. We're going to have more volume of water because there's less getting soaked into the ground. We're going to hold it in a detention basin and release it over a longer period of time so that the rate of flow never exceeds what was before, but that flow will last longer. And that's normal design criteria for a detention pond.
That's one of the things that we wanted looked at when we went to this third party, was to look at runoff and collection of water in other places when those were made. So that was part of what they were looking at, I think. So it sounds like that in the recommendations he came back to you all taking that consideration to look at that. And I know that's one of the areas we were concerned about. So.
So that answered your question? Are there any other questions about what's proposed right at the moment?
I do have one more.
Okay.
So when it comes off of Allen Street at that little cul-de-sac over there,
Right.
is it gonna catch any of the water? Are you gonna have two drop inlets at the end of, where the drop inlet's gonna be?
There's one at the end of the cul-de-sac between lots 105 and 104, and there's a storm pipe that runs along that side yard to the back, and then down to the west, and then north, all the way to the detention pond. They'll all be piped.
Okay. Cause I just know Allen Street holds a lot of water right there.
We're not putting any more, we're draining
We're
it
taking
to
our
the
own.
north, and
We're taking our own.
yeah.
We're not taking any from Green Gables, but we're not giving any to Green Gables.
Any other questions pertaining to the short to midterm development, not long term? All right, so based on what you were saying earlier, Chris, about moving forward with what's vacating and we still talking the 32 foot, we're okay with that?
We are, based upon the fact that it's dictated, that's all we can make our road
Right.
to, 32 foot.
Was there a third item? Something else? Anything?
He answered all the questions, we didn't really have anything of contention other than he asked those two questions about runoff, and he asked about the inlets on the
Right.
9 over there, 8 over there, so.
So, is that what we want, do we have a recommendation then to approve under those circumstances, with those?
What is a motion?
I'm asking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay.
Second,
Second.
Gail second.
All those in favor of
Aye.
approving?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right.
It passes, correct?
Passed. All right. Do we have anything for as may arise? Anything new?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. Do we have a
Second.
second? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so it is.